I'm Liza Holland. I'm a member of the nonprofit and nonpartisan League of Women Voters, and I will be serving as moderator for this forum for candidates for the LFUCG City Council District 5. The League of Women Voters of Lexington is the sponsor today, and this forum will be available later by going to the League website, and we'll give you that at the end of the forum. We have two candidates for this election. They are Mr. Gregg Ladd and Ms. Liz Sheehan. And we are following the League of Women Voters policies and procedures for this forum. In order to give the candidates a fair chance to be heard, we have randomly drawn via random.org for the order of opening remarks and questions, and a second time for the order of closing remarks. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to introduce themselves, 60 seconds to answer questions, and 60 seconds for closing. The questions have been created by the sponsors, league members, and we have also taken questions from the public. We did randomly choose, again, with random.org for closing comments. And so for that, Ms. Sheehan will go first and Mr. Ladd will go second. So we will start with our opening remarks, and Mr. Ladd, you have 60 seconds.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. Thank you to the league and also Liz. So nice to see you. My name is Gregg Ladd. I'm a candidate for 5th District City Council. I'm a local practicing attorney. I was born in the 5th District. I also own a small business in the district. It was started over on Euclid, well, right outside the district, and we've grown to 5 locations, and we have 30 employees over really the last 2 years. So we're very proud of that. Prior to that, I did a number of things that involve public advocacy, and also public infrastructure and economic development as well. So I feel like I bring a broad swath of professional experience to the table, but also perhaps more importantly, I'm a husband and a father. I have 3 small children that live in the district. My wife is a physician that practices in the district and is a female mental health expert. So I'm really excited to be here and engage with ideas and answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much. Ms. Sheehan?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Lexington for having us here today and for all of your work on voting rights and voter education in the community. And thank you to everyone that is taking time to watch this forum. I am the current council member for the 5th District, and I have been proud to fight for the 5th and get results on the issues that matter to our community. We have been facing some complex issues all over Fayette County and in the 5th District. And to find solutions, it takes someone who will look for collaboration, who is always thinking about how policies affect us now and in the future, and who won't back down when there is resistance or a bump in the road in the process toward making change. Whether it is getting much needed street repairs in the district, working to preserve our tree canopy from clear cutting, securing funding to address homelessness, working on equity, and so much more, I have been an effective council member for our district. And I am excited for the opportunity to be reelected to continue that work, and I look forward to discussing the issues here today.
Thank you so much. Ms. Sheehan, you will take the first question first. What do you see as the single most important issue facing your district, and what is your plan to address that issue?
Yeah, there's always a balance between overall policy like equity and community planning and everyday issues like traffic, trash, and sewers. But for me, it's really always thinking back to addressing people's basic needs. And we need that now more than ever. This includes a diverse set of housing options so everyone can afford to live here, food access, physical and mental health, safety, and job opportunities. And we kind of are getting into these conversations right now about returning back to normal. Well, I think we can do better than that. I don't want us to return to where we were prior to the pandemic. We are still seeing the same issues we faced then reemerge. And in fact, those issues are magnified by the pandemic. All of these issues of meeting people's basic needs are the things I have been working on this year. I have advocated for $10 million in our affordable housing fund, a diverse set of housing units and increasing those. I've met with our equity and implementation officer about efforts to build mobile food markets, and I've supported a $5 million forgivable loan program to support small businesses and jobs locally.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ladd, what do you see as the single most important issue facing the 5th District, and what is your plan to address the issue?
Yes, thank you very much. Really, the largest issue that I'm hearing from our community is public safety. That seems to be a concern. And Lexington is the noun and community is the feeling. Community is where you go and you feel safe and you exchange ideas and you love and you care about one another. At our business at Shake It, the premise behind even starting this was we felt like there was a marketplace for positivity. And what we're seeing right now is a division across our communities, a division across the city. And for me, that really starts with how we treat one another in the public safety and how we feel in our persons and our belongings. And as we go out and talk to folks, that's immediately the first feedback that we get is that they feel like crime is up. Statistically, apparently it is not, but violent crime is, homicides are. And the community wants to first and foremost feel safe before we attempt to advocate for other issues. And second, we put out a very simple blueprint of 7 things that Lexington needs to do that other communities are doing that we're just simply not. And so it's my hope through this candidacy to really focus on those 7 issues that help us be competitive with other communities.
Thank you so much. You will take this question first, and we'll slide right into a public safety question. Over half of the city's budget in the general fund is allocated to public safety, and yet those needs are different for each district. How would you address the specific public safety needs of your district while ensuring that those services are responsive and effective for the community as a whole?
Well, it really starts effectively with the narrative that's coming out of City Council. What we're seeing right now, frankly, is a divisive narrative. And it used to be for a very long time in Lexington, which was a renowned safe community, that the community organized against crime, not one another. And I've done ride-alongs, I've spoken with police, I've spoken with neighbors. They don't feel that sense of a priority on safety collectively with criminals as the bad guy. So for me, if the very first step is attacking how we approach the subject with the narrative. And President Obama put out wonderful guidance to policing in 2015. And one of the key takeaways I got from that was allocating resources to the police department for community outreach and normalizing. It's a contentious time, and I understand that, and everybody understands that, but normalizing what their role might be in the community. And that's just on the policing front. When it comes to public safety, I'm the former Kentucky State Safety Director. It's something that I'm passionate about. I have small children. I got to stop, but I love the question. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Ms. Sheehan, again, over half of the city's budget is allocated to public safety, and those needs are different in each district. How will you address the specific public safety needs of your district while ensuring that the services are responsive to and effective for the community as a whole?
Thank you. And one of the things when we're talking about the city budget is we need to understand that when we're talking about half of our budget going towards public safety, that is policing, it is fire, it is EMT, and it is our 911 system. So it is a wide variety of public safety services that we provide to the community. Now, when I'm going and talking with neighbors and residents in the community, most of them are talking about public safety, particularly around some of the community issues that we're seeing around gun violence. And that has touched the 5th District. We have seen shootings at the edge of the 5th District over on Winchester Road. And when that came up in the neighborhood, one of the first things that I did was think about the community approaches that we needed to use. I organized a neighborhood meeting where I brought actual folks from LPD and code enforcement to talk about some of the issues there, and our Commissioner for Public Safety as well attended one of those meetings. So I think that this needs to be a community approach, and I have supported resources and communication to that effect.
Marvelous. You will take this question first on housing affordability. Lexington faces challenges across districts with regard to housing affordability, diversity, and accessibility. What do you think is the city's role in addressing affordable housing, and how would you recommend prioritizing policy change to address these challenges?
Well, this is a huge issue. So answering this question in 60 seconds, it's a little bit hard. So I'll talk about some of the approaches that we can use and that I have backed. But we need more housing diversity. And I actually think our district is a good example of that. We have single family homes mixed in with multi-unit spaces like quads and apartment buildings, where we can be a good example of what this can look like across our city when we're talking about infill and redevelopment and using language like that. So I think we can be a model. But I think we need an increase in units, and I supported a $10 million increase to our affordable housing fund this past year, in addition to the $3 million that we typically put in to increase units. And we have seen already that that is having an impact. I think we have to focus on senior housing because that is a growing segment of our population. And we have to continue to ensure that Lexington is a place where everyone can afford to live.
Mr. Ladd, again, Lexington faces lots of challenges across the district with regard to housing affordability, diversity, and accessibility. What do you see as the city's role in addressing affordable housing, and how would you recommend prioritizing policy change to address these challenges?
Yeah, that's a great question. The city plays a huge role in affordable housing. First and foremost, I've experienced working with HUD and the Community Development Block Grants program to bring affordable housing to people all across Kentucky, both Eastern and Western Kentucky. That is the very first place we need to start. Second, we really need to optimize the opportunity to use mixed use development housing to make housing more affordable for different entities and different income levels. Really, to me, that what is most crucial is that we create tax policy that doesn't lead to gentrification. What I'm saying is that we're moving residents, our minority members and our community members out of different areas. And it is a policy level decision that is implementing the very fabric of our community. So from what my hope is to decrease that tax burden on areas where they're being pushed out and gentrification is taking hold. And one other quick thing, when we're talking about affordable housing for lower income people, it's really, we should partner through a P3 project with Habitat for Humanity and those different third-party entities that can make it more accessible. And it's a model that works. And I'm a bankruptcy attorney and I've seen it work a number of times. Those are my clients and I've helped save their homes.
Thank you. You'll take this question next or first. And so what are your priorities for green initiatives for Lexington, and how do you see the city combating climate change?
When you say green initiatives, can you define that a little bit?
Let me just change that to say, what are your priorities for the city to address climate change?
Yeah, so I'd like to see a number of mixed use green spaces, and I put this out on our website. In 2012, I wrote a land conservation tax credit bill that advocated for effectively even the playing field to maintain our beautiful, irreplaceable natural trademark. And it is not just the trademark of our community, but it's in effect, the heartbeat of any vibrant community is viable green space. And so when we look to combat not only climate change, but also how we grow and what we want to look like, it's critical that we're able to protect those areas that are currently in existence. And we also put out a whole platform on how we might encourage electric vehicles that mitigates the climate effect. I'd like to see Lexington be the first city that has a completely solar panel, 350 kilowatt direct charging station downtown. It would send a message not only to the state, but to the country that we're a community that is forward thinking, that is anticipating these issues coming down the road, and we're making plans for them. And I've actually even spoken to an entity that sells those electric charging stations, and we could get them at a good cost.
Thank you. Ms. Sheehan, how do you see the city addressing climate change?
Thank you for this question, because this is something that I work on and is really a personal interest of mine. I actually served on the Environmental Commission for the city prior to becoming a council member. And when I was on the commission, we were working to get a sustainability coordinator for our city, which is something that benchmark cities have already had for a long time. On council in my first year, I was able to secure funding along with some of my other council members for that sustainability coordinator position. This only passed by one vote. So it was very important that I was there to make that vote on council. That person was recently just hired in the last month, and I actually met with her yesterday so we could talk about updating our sustainability plan for the city. We have one that was adopted in 2012, but was not actually able to be implemented fully because we didn't have someone driving those initiatives. In addition to this, I have worked to protect our tree canopy. I'm a member of our Environmental Quality and Public Works Committee. I am working on a complete streets policy to increase alternative transportation and policies to expand our recycling and energy efficiency across the city.
Thank you. You'll take this question first. Lexington's 2018 comprehensive plan encourages infill and redevelopment as Lexington's main growth strategy. What specific implementation aspects of the comprehensive plan are working in your district, and what changes need to be addressed?
As I discussed before, like there's always this tension with neighborhoods in particularly around our policies to focus on infill and redevelopment. And we have chosen as a community, at least in our last comp plan 5 years ago in 2018, to preserve our urban services boundary, which means we have to focus our policy on these infill and redevelopment projects. But I find that we really have to work with neighborhoods to make sure that we are protecting the characteristics of the neighborhoods as these projects move forward. And like I said, I think the 5th District is a good model for what this can look like and how it has been successful in the past. But we always have to continually assess our policies and our development practices. We are currently going through a comp plan review year this year. So there are going to be lots of opportunities to engage on this issue in the community. The on the table sessions are focused solely on this issue, and those start on April 11th. So I would encourage the community to engage in those sessions, because having feedback is one from the community, and listening to what my residents say is one of the most important things to me.
Mr. Ladd, again, the comprehensive plan is encouraging infill and redevelopment. What specific implementation aspects of the comprehensive plan are working, and what challenges need to be addressed?
Well, so to the first part of your question, Liza, this is a loaded question, but what's working? Cities need to be built and structured to be adaptive. That's the way communities were built for over 1,000 years before we had flight to the suburbs. We need to get back to that. Adaptive use, and we're seeing that in the distillery districts and revitalization downtowns. There's a number of wonderful organizations that are utilizing that space to attract businesses, and that is what is successful. What has not been successful, in my estimation, when we're talking about infill, is recruiting businesses whose footprint is akin to what space is available downtown. And I've put out on our website, part of our platform, a model in which we can attract those tech companies that can come here. And it starts with having the highest grade fiber optic internet, the highest grade 5G, and we can attract companies that are Web3 companies that can come here. And I've actually even reached out to a group called Build, that is an entity that recruits web-based tech companies that are looking for someone that could be friendly to them and have a workspace that's conducive to what it is they need to do. There's only a handful of these in the country, maybe 7 or 8. We should be a leader on this front and be the next build city in the country.
Thank you. You'll take this question first. Poverty is one of the biggest issues that affect poor families, education, and employment opportunities. What plans and steps do you see as very important to implementation and promotion of effective poverty elimination programs? And what are you willing to do to ensure that implementation is a priority?
Yeah, this is where my professional practice focuses. I'm a bankruptcy attorney. The majority of my clients are in dire straits, whether it be from medical issues, which would be the predominant one, or predatory lending, or a sick family member, or they've lost their job due to COVID. Poverty is something that we can address systemically by making sure we have an environment that's conducive not only to education and affordability of housing, but with good jobs and a variety of those jobs. And what we're seeing right now is a very one-size-fits-all reactive plan to what is causing people to not be able to exceed to their highest potential. And so my hope is that we become a proactive city that's looking at tomorrow's opportunities. What are these jobs available making sure our young folks are being educated for those positions, but also we're bringing in jobs that are conducive to our current population. And again, my clients, the majority of them are the victims of predatory lending and poor social policies that allow for those things to go on. So my first initiative would be to put a damper on things like that.
Thank you. Ms. Sheehan, poverty is one of the biggest issues that affects poor families, education, and employment opportunities. What plans and steps do you see as very important to implement and promote effective poverty elimination programs? And what are you willing to do to ensure that implementation is a priority?
One of the things that I have already mentioned is a backbone and the core of who I am and what I work on as a council member is meeting people's basic needs. So that is supporting housing, food access, mental and physical health, public safety, and job opportunity. So there are two things that I can kind of see how poverty interacts with our community. One is we have to support people through social services. So I have been supporting our housing stabilization fund and helping people get assistance with housing and utilities when they needed it throughout this pandemic. So that's one, making sure we're meeting people's basic needs there and having the things that they need to survive, really. But then the other part is job development. So if you want to support your family, you need the wages to do that. I have supported increased wages and raises within all of our government sectors this year. But I also advocated personally to increase funding to our workforce development grants for to improve workforce training within our community.
Thank you. You'll take this question first. What are your thoughts on having a robust, trauma-informed juvenile justice system in Lexington and Kentucky that will be applied to all young people, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, or offense?
That's a complex question, but thank you for that. I'm not sure that many people know that my PhD is actually in developmental psychology. So I think about youth, I think about development, I think about how youth interact with their environment and how we have these cyclical patterns that tend to happen. I support anything that we can do to increase the empowerment of our youth and to break them out of some of the familial cycles that we see in our community. I've supported the One Lexington department where we have the director, Divine Karama, and he has been doing a lot of youth mentoring that I think is designed to do exactly this kind of work directly within the community before our youth get into the justice system. We have also given funding and support to a new court process that is actually focused towards youth. It's like we've had a mental health and a drug court system. Now we also have one focused on juveniles. So I have supported those things in my first year and I am committed to this effort.
Thank you. Mr. Ladd, what are your thoughts on having a robust trauma-informed juvenile justice system here in Lexington and Kentucky that would be applied to all young people, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, or offense?
Yeah, so juvenile justice is another area I'm passionate about. I mean, I own a business with a Black guy who basically said if it weren't for his local community center, he wouldn't be where he is today. And at an elementary level, I think we need to put resources within the communities to give children a safe place to go, someplace where they can go and have a mentor, meet, play that's clean and safe. Second, I volunteer to teach incarcerated juveniles to get their college degree. I'm an attorney, I teach constitutional law, and I think in government, I think it's critical that we send our young folks out into the community with the the educational, intellectual resources they need to compete and not revert back to old habits. The recidivism rate amongst youth is nowhere near as it is adults, and we're seeing the effects of good policy and good programming take place in Kentucky. And I would applaud at the state level the past several juvenile justice cabinet commissioners for implementing these measures, and those seeds that they laid there are starting to sow right now, and we see that recidivism rate go down. There's so much left to be done, and our young folks, those are our most valuable resources. We absolutely must make it a premium to allocate the resources we can to where they're equipped.
Thank you very much. You have the first crack at the final question. Meaningful public participation is vital to a responsive local government. What are some innovative approaches that you think or you would like to advocate for to make government processes more accessible, equitable, and transparent?
That's a great question. So that's one of the 7 pillars of our 7-point blueprint. It is community leadership. How do we engage folks to where we can have a more robust dialogue and better impact the issues that our district is facing? And the first one is looping in business leaders to find out from a regulatory standpoint what the council can be doing to help them. Second, there should be a standing committee of every neighborhood association president within the district who meets regularly to discuss issues, not just specific to them, but as it relates to everyone, and flush out that dialogue. We're in the technology age. We need to cycle faster. We need to be more inclusive, more thoughtful. And then anyone who's willing to engage in those discussions, we need to make a space for them. Bring folks together, because a lot of the issues that we're facing as a community, quite frankly, are low-hanging fruit, and the answers are out there. And by bringing folks together and flushing out that conversation, flushing out not just what resources, putting money against the problem, but actual solutions, is absolutely the first thing we need to do. So as a council person, that would be step number 1, is build an advisory board of all those separate folks to help us navigate issues before the council.
Thank you, Ms. Sheehan. Meaningful public participation is vital to a responsive local government. What are some innovative approaches that you would advocate for to make government processes more accessible, equitable, and transparent?
One of the reasons that I came into council and chose to run for office initially was because of my background as an educator and knowing that I have the skills to engage people on complex issues. It's my job to teach those in my classrooms. So some of the things that I have started as a council member, I have worked on a column called Civic Connections in the Chevy Chaser and Southsider to help inform, keep informed, and engage residents. And this is a column that cycles through different organizations and council members and policymakers within our community to make sure that the public knows what's going on. We also are currently under a study. We have partnered with Civic Lex, a nonprofit organization who's focused on community engagement, to collect data and evaluate our public input processes to make sure that we are being equitable and offering opportunity for everyone. So I look forward to hearing the results of that study. They should be coming out very soon, actually, potentially this month. And I will be very carefully considering what recommendations that they make that we can implement immediately.
Thank you. And now we move to closing remarks, and based upon our trusty random.org, Ms. Sheehan, you are first up for a closing remark, 60 seconds.
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters of Lexington. Thank you, Mr. Ladd, for being here, and everyone who took the time to watch this forum. We have discussed some of our most pressing issues here today, and these are the same issues that I have campaigned on in 2020 and got results on working on in my first term. I am continually working to improve the lives of all Lexingtonians, and my door is always open to hear the concerns of community members. Local government affects your everyday life, and you should feel comfortable contacting your council member. If you have any unanswered questions for me after today, you can find all of my contact information on my website, lizforlex.com. You can also find me in my council office in the government center. I would like to continue working together to preserve the uniqueness of Lexington while shaping our future. And I ask for your vote in the primary election on May 17th to re-elect me as your 5th District Council member. Thank you.
Mr. Ladd.
Yeah, thanks so much. I have plenty of time here. I loved it. We didn't talk about infrastructure, technology, the discrepancy in women's wages. I'd love to discuss that. But in closing remarks, first off, Councilwoman Sheehan, she's passionate. And the first thing I did when I decided I wanted to run for council was send her an email and say, look, this is not a reflection of any decision you've made. I think you're a wonderful person. I just have a different set of priorities and a different experiences professionally. And it's a 7-point blueprint that other cities similar size are doing. We're simply not. And it's something that would enhance, it's low-hanging nonpartisan fruit. It's things that would enhance the lives of every community member. Public safety, infrastructure, beautification, homelessness. mental health, just community leadership, things that we could come together on that no one would be opposed to, that would put us in a better place and position us better for tomorrow's opportunities. I appreciate you having me. I love the Ellen Skidmore painting in the background there, Liza. I think that's who that is. Yeah, and I'd appreciate your vote on May 17th as well in the primary.
Thank you so very much. And the league would very much like to thank both candidates for participating today and for stepping up to run for office. It's a very important piece. If you are interested in league membership, please check out our website at lwvlexington.com. That's also where these candidate forums will be housed, and please share them with all your friends so we can have good informed voters out there. And please do check out some more information about the candidates on vote411.org. Thank you so much for joining us today.